Consider Route 1 Fusion for your dealership's digital retailing. Customers can build vehicle financing options online with estimated payments, trade-ins, and you can even showcase optional protection products. Faster process, elevated sales, more satisfied customers. Visit route1.com/fusion to connect for a demo today.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Hyundai CEO says tariffs are squeezing the automaker. GM discloses CEO Mary Barra's compensation last year, a cool $30 million. And the FTC wants dealers to report competitors who break advertising rules. Plus, Andrew Wright of VinArt Dealerships talks about why he chose not to participate in Hyundai's Amazon Autos partnership, despite helping establish the program.
What are we quantifying? If we're purely quantifying success based on the number of vehicles that are sold, then I think it would be hard to gauge this as a success at this point.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Hyundai's CEO Jose Munoz has a blunt message. Tariffs are hurting the company. The South Korean automaker is feeling the squeeze in its biggest market, the U.S., where a 15% tariff hits about half the vehicles it sells here. Munoz says the fix is ramping up American production, but that takes years. In the meantime, Hyundai is cutting costs wherever it can and adjusting prices to cushion the blow. Mary Barra of General Motors took home just under $30 million last year, making her once again the highest paid CEO in Detroit. According to a filing with the SEC, GM bumped Barra's total comp up about 1.4% from 2024. And here's a number. Over her 12 years running the company, she's now earned more than $300 million. And the Federal Trade Commission wants dealers to report competitors who violate vehicle advertising rules. The agency's Bureau of Consumer Protection said during a webinar last week that dishonest advertising, like bait-and-switch tactics, diverts traffic from honest dealers. The FTC clarified that document fees must be included in advertised vehicle prices. Here to talk more about it is our own Paige Hodder, who covers retail for us at Automotive News. Paige, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Paige, are dealers receptive to reporting competitors, or is there pushback?
I think it kind of depends on the dealer. I actually spent last week a couple days in Vegas at a dealership, F&I compliance conference, essentially. And, we heard stories of, in the past, some of these cases or little things get started because it's actually a dealer that reports another dealer, not necessarily to the FTC, but sometimes to state attorney generals. And so it's definitely something dealers do. I think some dealers don't want the government involved in the business, and so there's an attitude that way. But, one of the biggest pushbacks against the whole FTC's warning about advertising is, if I don't do advertising this way, then my competitor down the street is doing it, and then I can't compete with them. So this really came out as that's not a good enough excuse. Just because, your competitor is breaking the law does not give you a good enough reason to break the law. And so if that person is impeding your business, maybe the best path forward is actually reporting them so that they stop that.
Now, how does this enforcement approach compare to what the FTC has done in the past? And what makes them think dealer reporting will be more effective?
I think the FTC really relies a lot on consumer complaints. Someone who comes into the dealership maybe has a bad experience and reports it. And I think sometimes it can take time for those to bubble up enough to warrant action. The letters the FTC sent out about these advertising practices made it really clear that they're paying attention to this. And clearly they've already identified some dealership groups that were breaking the rules and need to change their practices. And, I think really making the dealership groups across the country, even the ones who weren't sent a letter, aware of these problems and the very specific ways they expect to follow them is a step forward to more consistent, enforcement. And then, getting dealers involved in the conversation is another step. If you're concerned that your competitors are harming your business by breaking these rules, let's have a conversation about that. Let's get NADA involved in that conversation. And I think that's a really kind of a different tone rather than, the relying solely on consumer complaints.
Paige, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Coming up, Andrew Wright of Vinart Dealerships discusses why he opted out of Hyundai's Amazon Autos partnership despite being the first dealer to partner with the venture to get it started. That's next on Daily Drive.
Route One Fusion is an expanded digital retail solution built to enhance your dealership's customer engagement and improve the results of your online efforts. Many customers expect a fast, online-friendly experience and prefer clarity early in the process, especially if they have a vehicle to trade. So ask yourself, are your current digital retailing tools helping shoppers understand their trade-in value and helping your team move deals forward faster? With a subscription to Fusion, you can benefit from its trade-in valuation feature that empowers customers to estimate the value of their current vehicle early in the process. This helps customers arrive in-store better prepared, make expectations around payments and equity more realistic, and move conversations and decisions faster. The result is higher quality leads, more productive interactions, and a smoother transition from online to in-store. And trade-in valuation is just one example of how Route One Fusion can expand your digital retail experience. Fusion also supports other features that include appointment scheduling so customers can view your availability and book a time. Pre-qualification tools with subscription provide quick, credit-based payment options, and production product presentations allow you to present products earlier to help customers explore their options. Schedule a personalized demo to see how Fusion can help generate more opportunities from your online traffic. Visit routeone.com/fusion to connect with Route One today.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Hyundai was the first automaker to partner with Amazon to sell vehicles on its platform. Andrew Wright helped establish the program for Hyundai dealers, but ultimately chose not to participate. Andrew Wright is managing partner at Vinart Dealerships. He spoke with Automotive News retail tech reporter Mark Homer about his concerns with the Amazon Autos platform and what he's seeing 18 months into the partnership.
Well, Andrew, thank you for joining me. It's interesting to me that you chose, as a Hyundai dealer, not to participate in that. How come?
Yeah, so I have a unique perspective on the whole thing. I was actually involved at the inception of this program in helping to get it established for Hyundai dealers on behalf of Hyundai dealers with the folks at Amazon Autos. And ultimately, the decision that I made not to participate in the pilot really revolved around some concerns that I had with respect to the F&I portion of the process and how trade-ins were going to be handled. The folks at Amazon had specific ideas that they were set on implementing regarding how trade-ins were going to be handled specifically by a third party as opposed to by the dealer. But the real big one was F&I. And F&I was a challenge for me because they were limiting the products that we could offer on the platform. And I had concerns about requirements for 100% disclosure with our customers. So my fear and the advice I was given by my legal counsel was that the Amazon process was not compliant with the 100% disclosure rules that largely govern the F&I portion of the automobile transaction. What was happening was we were limited in which products we were able to offer. And I wanted a customer going through the Amazon process to sign an additional piece of paper when they took delivery that said that we did, in fact, offer them all the available products that we had available in F&I, in our F&I department. And Amazon was not willing to allow us to do that. So they wanted it basically to be an entirely online transaction. The customer came in, we gave them the keys, and they left. And that's fine. I respect that that was their wish, that was their desire, that was how they wanted the sales process to play out. I just had concerns about compliance, and I wasn't comfortable with moving forward.
Understood. Well, 18 months or so later since this has started, the goal here is to look back at how it's been going so far. And I
Sure.
know that you're not participating, but I'm fairly certain you have colleagues that are.
Yes.
And you're certainly watching as a part of this. How do you think it's been going?
Well, first and foremost, I applaud Hyundai for trying to be innovative and progressive and sort of the first ones in the pool, if you will, from the standpoint of offering Hyundai products and services, via the dealers on the Amazon platform. I think, it started as a marketing play, and I think it remains a marketing play. And I think it remains an area where a lot of OEMs are starting to feel that they can get eyeballs on their products on the Amazon platform because let's face it, it is, the nation's and arguably the world's leading e-commerce platform. So why wouldn't you want your products to be there? So some of my dealer colleagues have opted to stay in the program. The ones that have are, to my knowledge, reporting mixed results at best in terms of actual sales and transactions that are occurring. I don't think the volume is necessarily tremendous. I don't really think anybody thought the volume was going to be tremendous. So I think it's important to view it, with proper context and through the appropriate lens. Again, I think Amazon is serving as a platform to garner some attention, additional attention for products that dealers sell. But how many transactions are actually occurring? The quality of those transactions, the profitability of those transactions, I think that's those are the big question marks right now that still remain 18 months into this.
Why are they question marks? Is the information not forthcoming?
I haven't seen specific numbers, nor have specific numbers been shared with the dealer network regarding how many cars have actually been sold. I do know, anecdotally from the dealers I know that are on the platform, the numbers are small, and profitability is challenging. But Amazon is also taking it upon themselves to offer additional incentives to induce customers to transact on the platform. Ostensibly, I can only imagine so they can at least have something to learn from, which is smart. But that's another added layer of complexity from an incentive standpoint. If a customer can get an additional incentive from Amazon versus from HMA or whatever it is, I don't know what that's necessarily doing to promote transparency, but it's definitely an inducement to transact on the platform. So I'm sure that's why they're doing it.
Are some happy? Are all disappointed? Is there a perspective on this that's somewhere else?
I would say the prevailing sentiment at this point, Mark, is probably indifference. I think it's way too early to tell because of the low volume of transactions. I think that there's just a lot of dealers out there that are kind of like, I could go either way on it. I mean, it's not really costing me much by being on there, but at the same time, I'm not really gaining much by being on there. And I think that speaks to two things. I think it speaks to the immature nature of the platform, of the Amazon platform as a place to transact in retail automotive. I think that's number one. And number two, the vast majority of consumers still want to transact in person in the dealership. They want to see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, drive it before they buy it. And I think they see the value in having their hand held for all intents and purposes by a sales professional that's well trained, that can give them all the options they need and all the information they need to make informed decisions. And I think that's where the majority are still gravitating to transact. And there's nothing wrong with that. But having said that, I want to be clear. I don't think that that means that dealers shouldn't be on Amazon. I think that dealers need to make their own decisions about being in places where consumers want to transact. And it needs to make sense for all parties involved, right? And I think that's what's still trying to shake out here.
Sure. Well, if expectations were that the initial year, 18 months, wouldn't have a lot of vehicles sold, then how do you gauge success?
I'm not really sure how you gauge success in an endeavor of this nature. I think it's uncharted territory, right? We have to figure out if it is more of an advertising or a marketing play. I think it really boils down to, how many eyeballs are you getting on your products? And, how many people are going down the path towards a transaction, but end up not consummating that transaction, right? So, they're going in there, they're putting a vehicle in their shopping cart, they're exploring payment options, maybe protection package options, accessories, things like that. But maybe they're just not comfortable transacting on the platform. So they're bouncing out and then they're still going to the dealer. So is that the worst thing in the world? No, I don't think it is. I think that's totally fine.
Let's flesh that out a little. If success isn't gauged in numbers, does Amazon Autos work in that it just brings more eyeballs to dealerships, even if they're not a huge amount?
Well, I mean, I still think there is the success lies in the numbers. I think it still needs to be quantifiable, and I'm sure that it is. I just think that, what are we quantifying? If we're purely quantifying success based on the number of vehicles that are sold, then I think it would be hard to gauge this as a success at this point. If we're gauging it off the numbers of people that are visiting the site, that are shopping for vehicles, that are clicking around, that are looking at the equivalent of a VDP or an SRP page, that are actually penciling a deal or are submitting information that is commensurate with intent to transact, then I think, those numbers might paint a different picture. But I haven't been privy to those numbers. I'm not sure what they look like. And even if I had them, I don't know as though I have the proper context to really interpret them effectively. I think it's one of those things that has to mature over time. And then at some point, the people that are making the decisions about whether or not to partake in the program and participate on the platform, they need to decide if it's worth it.
I know that you helped consult in putting this thing together, but
initially, yes,
you chose ultimately not to be part of it. But what are your hopes then for this partnership?
My hopes really are that we start to learn more about the desire of our customers to transact in alternative places and platforms. Right? I mean, I still think that this is undeniable. The vast majority of consumers still want to transact in a physical dealership in their local market. That's what the data says, right? However, there are incrementally more and more customers, day after day, month after month, year over year, that are choosing to go down the path of 100% online transactions or partial online transactions. So we need to learn from that. We need to make sure we have the tools and the resources to be there for our customers where they want to transact and make the process as smooth and transparent as possible. And so as a retailer, that's where my focus is. And I look forward to the opportunity to work with all of my OEM partners to develop processes and solutions that are going to meet the customer where they want to be met and service them how they want to be serviced. That's what it's all about here. And I just think we need to resist the temptation as an industry to sort of put everybody in the same pool or in the same box that that everybody wants to transact in the same fashion. And that's just not the case. I don't care what Carvana's doing. I don't care what Tesla does. We can learn from those organizations because they've built robust platforms that deliver an experience that more and more customers do like, enjoy, and pursue. We can do the same thing, though. We can absolutely do it, and we can compete.
Yes, indeed. Andrew, thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
My pleasure.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Paige Hodder and Lindsay Van Hully for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on digital retailing, regulatory enforcement, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. Come back tomorrow to hear from another dealer who has a very different perspective on the Amazon Autos platform.
We always like to wait, vet stuff out, make sure it's a right fit for our organization before we bring it to market. And now, after several meetings that we had with Jess Morrow at Amazon, it just made total sense to join this program.
We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoyed the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.